Welcome back to part 2 of drawing a portrait using charcoal. I'm going to use a clean, dry paintbrush to soften some of the harsh edges. You can also use your fingers or a smudge stick. It just works well to smudge some of your tone around. I have sped up this footage. The actual drawing time was about 39 minutes, so you can see that I work quite slowly. I will be using my paintbrush to soften areas and move the tone around. I pick up some dark from some areas and I smush it all around and really soften those areas. So you can see how I'm softening that cheek and softening around the mouth, and I will just continue making things quite soft, and then I will be getting some hard conte and then getting the real dark areas, and then I will be using some willow charcoal to get softer tone, and then I will be using the white conte to get some strong highlights. So you'll be basically watching me do that. So that little area there, I softened it, and then I needed to have a stronger dark area right in the corners there to get some definition. Now I'm not going to talk through this whole thing. I'm going to put some of the music on so you can just observe. Sometimes that's the best way, is just to see what I'm doing. You can tell that the small stick that I'm using is the conte, and it's very hard and very dark. The chunkier piece is the willow charcoal, and it's not as compressed. It's very soft and great to have lighter tone. And most of the drawing so far that you can see has been done with that willow charcoal. So the compressed stuff is just to get extra dark. And I go back and forth between those all the time, smudging them, adding some darker bits, smudging it, adding some medium tone with the willow charcoal, and using the kneadable eraser also. You will notice that I use my white eraser, especially if it's a brand new one and it has some harsh edges. I can use that to draw some highlighted areas without using the harsh white of the conte all the time. You really want to have your highlights with that conte to be subtle. You don't want that white everywhere. You want to keep it just to a few different areas. You will see me using my white eraser now to draw a few highlights in the hair. And see how well that works. Just get a few little strands in there. I've now slowed things down a little bit while I talk about drawing the eyes. I like to make it a little bit dark around the iris, and I'd also like to make it dark in the pupil, but leave a little area just with the paper and no charcoal so I can put a highlight in there. Otherwise, if I put the pupil all black and put the white on top, it's all going to get smudgy and gray. It's not going to be like a nice white. The other thing is the bottom of the iris. It's not round. It gets cut off by your actual, the bottom of your lash line. And I'm going to use some white charcoal and just put a little bit of highlight right in front of that iris down at the bottom. That'll make the eye look a little bit round. And when I put the whites in the eyes, I don't put it all the way to the top. I sort of put it this bottom half. That way it looks like there's a shadow that's been created by my eyelashes, because that's what happens in real life. And it'll make those eyes look more 3D. And then I just use a little bit of a highlight above the iris on the eyelid, and that again makes things look a bit 3D. this mouth, one of my tips for finding the likeness is to look at the negative shapes. So those are the spaces between things. So instead of drawing all around the lips, I am looking at the shape that is next to the teeth. You know, you can see that I'm putting in that dark shape now. I'm trying to decide if it's a rectangle, if it's a triangle, if it's a diamond, whatever shape it is, I'm putting it in. And getting up quite close and putting my big head in the way. When you're drawing, you want to constantly be rechecking your alignments with things. So the outside of my nostrils to where my teeth might be lining up, the corner of my right-hand side of my lips to where it's lining up in my iris. You want to continuously be checking those things. Now, one of the mistakes I made when I did this drawing is I forgot to step back from my work and have a good look at it. So you must always remember every few minutes to get up off your chair and have a step back and look at it from a distance. Because if I would have done that, I would have noticed that the alignment of the eyes is off. The one on the left is too high, or maybe the one on the right is too low. But regardless, the corners of the eyes are not, they're not lined up. And that's a big problem. Well, it's a problem for me anyways. I mean, I'm sure that I could have just left it and it would have been perfectly fine. But I have to fix those things. It makes me a little bit crazy when I don't. So I'm going to show you how I do that. Or at least I'll show you when I finally realize that I've done it. At this stage of my drawing, I didn't realize that I had made that mistake yet because I hadn't stepped back yet. Step back, people. Always step back. you know, half an hour earlier than I needed to. I mean, later than I needed to. When I'm looking at the drawing now, I realize that I made a crucial mistake, and it's one that I discussed earlier. And it is about the alignment of the eyes. There's always one that I make too high, one that I make too low, and I usually correct that as I'm going. But today, because I was working on an angle, and I didn't get up and look away from my artwork, I now have a mistake that I need to rectify. Can you notice how that left eye is too high? I'm happy with the right side, and the space between here, to me, looks pretty good. So that one needs to lower. So what do you do if you make a mistake like that? Do you erase the whole thing? No, you don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it closer, and I'm going to show you how I actually fix stuff when I screw it up. Okay, so I've worked out that I need this eye to move down. Okay, the reason I worked it out is this felt like it was right. So what I did was, in my image of Lady Gaga, I measured from here to here, where this little white area is on her nose, to the middle of her eye. And when I did it, when I went from there to there, it was the same of the width from here to here, which I'm also happy with. So if I do that, I can see they're the same. So knowing that that's working, then this eye is correct. My angle is like this. My T needs to be like this, not like that. So that needs to be, this eye needs to be lowered to here. So this part here needs to move to here. Okay, that section there. And everything else will have to come with it. So what I do is I don't erase everything. Okay. Yes. So what I do is I just start lowering things. So get rid of that. Because all that information is good information, I don't want to lose it all. I'm just going to move that down there a little bit. Move it all a bit down. Once I've smudged that at the bottom, and I got rid of that information, I can put on the new information. And I'm doing that now, making it a little bit darker there, and wiping away and lowering the eyebrow on the left, but still keeping the same angles. And I'm wiping away the area that is the whites of her eyes, so I can put in some fresh white charcoal or white Conte. Now I want to double check and see how high or how low the upper lid needs to be. So I need to move that down so you can see that it's the same shape as the eyelid that's above. I've just made a dark line and lowered it. And just double checking again. Wasn't happy. I do a lot of erasing, double checking. That's just me though. It's not necessary that everyone needs to be so exact all the time. Yep, wrong again. Back and forth, back and forth. But you can see that even someone who does portraits and figurative work all the time, I still struggle to sometimes to see what I'm drawing. It's all in the observation, and sometimes I'm just not seeing it right. So to, get an eraser and a paintbrush to align things, or a ruler to align things, is quite helpful. So now I'm erasing the top part of that eyelid, and getting rid of the double line, because I had two lines, the wrong one and the correct one. And now I can put the information back in. So you can see I didn't erase that whole thing. I just moved things slightly, and I highly recommend that you do it like that. If you're painting, if you're drawing, just lower things incrementally. Don't erase the whole thing and start again. It's just frustrating, and it's a waste of time and a waste of the information that you've already put down. This video is ending up to be a little bit longer than I had anticipated, because I wasn't expecting to make any mistakes or having to fix anything, but I actually think that it might be a useful thing for you to see how someone will make a mistake and how they can fix it. And it's much faster the second time around, because I remember all of the information, and you get to see it a little bit closer up the second time around. I mentioned not to use too much white Conte. Use it very sparingly. Well, I didn't take my own advice and I went completely berserko and put white, started off quite subtle, and then I just started putting it everywhere. Luckily, the one good thing about working in charcoal and in Conte, it's quite easy to fix these problems. So I just got some tissue paper and I just smudged it around and spread out the white, and then I got a kneadable eraser and pulled it all off where I wanted the warmth of the paper to come through. That concludes today's lesson on portraiture and charcoal. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you're going to give it a go yourself. Please send me any images of the work that you've done yourself. I would love to see it. Please join me for the next lesson, which will be looking at the planes of the face and looking at painting the features specifically and in detail. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye.